Hello and welcome to Talking with Famous People. My name is host Eric and I am the host of Talking with Famous People. And this morning I begin a video series, I hope. I want to do a couple of them today, maybe, about argumentation. I've started this sort of thing before. I made a few videos up there before. Margie suggested I make a video called How to Beat Me in an Argument. That's what this video is going to probably be called. I don't know if it's actually going to be, per se, give you that, really, because there's some issues with that. I mean, to a certain extent, I'm unbeatable, but it's not because I'm never wrong. It's because I'm always shifting and conceding anything that's wrong before it has a chance to be used against me. And I'm not going to go down any dark alleys where I'm at a huge disadvantage. So, I mean, that's the issue there. But if you were to beat me, you would need to use techniques like this. And the other thing I wanted to say is that it took, of course, another explosively unfortunate Eric overreach and mistake, making a couple of very pow pow videos at a couple of ladies who happen to have the terrible misfortune of disagreeing with me. Um, Sorry, I I had to make that mistake for some reason one last time. Probably not the last time. I guarantee you it's not. But what I'm trying to get at is, I get it. I'm supposed to teach people this stuff. I'm not supposed to beat them up with it. It's that fucking simple. So, why I indulge in my righteous indignation so easily, I do not know. But I want you, viewers, to know that I am learning and growing at all times, with fits and starts. Sometimes I take a few steps back. Here's the document. Let's go over it real quick. I'm going to try to go over it as quick as possible. This is just the beginning part of it. Pre-argument. Arguing for results. If you're going to try to have an argument and win it, you need to know the following things. Why am I arguing? What outcome do I want? Do I just want to win and dominate? Or do I want to achieve an outcome where a decision maker makes a different decision? If it's the latter, it's going to be a different kind of argument. We're mostly talking about the former here. Against whom am I arguing? Why are they arguing? So, are they arguing what they actually say they're arguing? Or are they arguing something else that they don't really say explicitly? Um, I think Nango's point was she didn't like my tone, but she didn't say that directly. And if she had said it directly, I would have done a lot better in terms of responding to it. But I should have known that, and I should have not abused her for it. Instead, I should have found a nicer way to teach her something, I guess. What am I arguing about? Okay, so in any given instance, somebody's going to make a claim, and there's going to be arguments made against it. So one such claim might be, people don't fit into types. This MBTI stuff is nonsense. It's no different than horoscopes. Okay, so there you've got several sentences, each of which is a distinct claim. This MBTI stuff is nonsense. People don't fit into types. It's no different than horoscopes. So, a couple of different. I mean, the analogy between MBTI and horoscopes there is saying it's arbitrary and random, that it's not actually correlative to anything in the individual. The idea that people don't fit into types, that they're too unique, well, I mean, that's the point in dispute. That's just making the claim that you're wrong. It's not actually giving any reason for it, except that people are too unique. But, I mean, my experience is, as you start to meet others of your own type, you kind of start to realize that you're not that unique, that others have very, very similar brain. And that's the point, and just claiming otherwise doesn't change anything. So you want to narrow this argument down to a single claim. So which one do you want to argue about? I mean, I would start with the claim that people don't fit into types, probably, and then move on to the claim that that the cognitive function model is not actually reliably correlative in the same way that a horoscope is not reliably correlative. And understanding what those claims actually mean, because when he says it's like a horoscope, what does that mean? Well, we think of, well, that's something that doesn't count. That's not a valid reason for things. Hello?
Hello?
Hi. Is this is this
You know Julia Celedon?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I understand. You're the maid, right? So,
Yes.
okay, how do I get you or what happens now?
Because I don't how, I don't found somebody that my child today. So I want to ask you if you want, can I go tomorrow?
Um Tomorrow's no good. Tomorrow's
Tomorrow.
not tomorrow's not good and Sunday's not good, but Monday's possible.
Okay, Monday in the morning.
Yeah, Monday in the morning is possible, sure. Yeah.
So what time do you want Monday in the morning?
Like 9 o'clock maybe or yeah. 10
Mm,
10 o'clock? I don't know. What
so where do you live?
what time do you want to come?
I 10. It's okay.
10? Okay, fine. That's fine.
So where do you live?
I live in Temple City. Do you need me to drive to get you or do you have a car?
No, I need somebody catch me because I drive, but I don't have car right now.
Okay, well, if you need me to, where do you live? What city?
Driving?
Duarte? Okay. Well, if you need me to come get you, I can come get you, and then that's fine. Um, but yeah, is that what you wanted to have happen, or what? That's not that far.
Yes. I sent my address in one picture.
Okay. All right, you're gonna
Okay.
text me your address. Yeah, sure, fine. So yeah,
Okay.
text me and call me back, call me on Monday or Sunday night to remind me. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, but my English is not too really
Okay.
much.
Nope. That's just
But
fine. That's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying, remind me. Tell me again on Sunday night so I remember. So I no, no
okay, I text you
so,
and send you.
so I recuerdo.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
That's not what this is supposed to be about. That's not what this video is about. I guess I should leave that in there. That'd be kind of funny. It wouldn't be that funny though. People would be really annoyed by it, I think. I don't know. It would be an interesting test though if you just leave it in and find out. Are you super annoyed by that? I left that in there. I could get in trouble. I didn't tell her I was recording her, but you know, whatever. What am I arguing? Which claim or claims are in dispute? Narrow down to a single claim. Pen opponent to it. This is what we're arguing about. What's our framework? Which impacts are significant and why? What kind of claim is in dispute? So, if we're talking about whether or not people are in fact accurately described by the cognitive function model and that it's a meaningful way to taxonomy people into types, then we have to establish what counts as sufficient similarity to justify uh, saying that the model is being confirmed or at least supported by, or that the data is consistent with versus inconsistent with. In this case, what kind of claim is in dispute? Well, it's a descriptive claim, more or less. It says that people don't fit into types, that it's describing people as uh, too unique to be meaningfully categorized. Of course, it's a problem, right? It misunderstands the nature of categorization. Doesn't matter how unique things are, they're going to be more or less different from other things in different ways. So, it says here, which impacts are significant and why? Which kind of claim is in dispute? Descriptive, is there a fact in dispute? Well, not really. Is the description an interpretation? Yeah, kind of. Is the claim guilty of a reification, fallacy, or other category error? Well, yeah, it is, because it's misunderstanding what types are. Like, it's misunderstanding what categories are. If you say, well, people are too unique to fit into types, that's saying um, circles are too round to be considered shapes. No, that doesn't work like that. So, prescriptive. A prescriptive claim is one that says you should do this, or they should do that, or they should not do this. Who's being advised by whom to do what? Are there open-ended alternatives or a choice between options? Is there a normative component, or is the matter purely practical? These are important. If you're saying I should do this because it's to my benefit, that's a different matter than I should do this because it's morally right. Normative claims about how things ought to be, or whether a given action taken or proposed is morally obligatory, morally prohibited, or morally permissible. Those are normative claims. They don't often use that language, but that's what they mean. Predictive. What's a predictive claim? It says this is going to happen. What is being extrapolated? Usually extrapolates a mechanism. If we don't do something about the rising crime rate in our inner cities, we're going to blah, blah, blah. It's usually all bullshit. There are systems questions at hand. Is this a chaotic system in which you cannot meaningfully predict how a system altering action in the status quo is going to impact down the road? Or is it a closed system, or what? Like, it matters a lot as to whether you can actually make predictions. There are plenty of kind of systems for which predictions are literally impossible because they're chaotic, and emergent phenomena make it such that they're impossible. That doesn't mean that things don't have probability. It just means that you have to be aware of how limited the scope of anticipated impact is, what you're trying to achieve, etc., etc. If I'm saying, let's dig a hole in the front yard and plant a tree today, then the outcome is I get a tree, then, well, that's pretty straightforward. There's no denying that the impact of digging a hole and planting a tree was getting a tree. Because I'm trying to get the thing that I'm directly doing. But if I'm saying something like, we should plant a tree today because it's going to help with global warming, well, then in that matter, it's a lot more complicated, right? There's a lot more in hand than just wanting to get a tree. It's proposed as a solution to a different problem than not having a tree. And when that happens, then you've got a lot of systems considerations to put into play. All right, so let's look at weighing mechanisms criteria now. What are some ways in which you can evaluate debate? Let's say Homie advocates that we should plant a tree to help against global warming. And then he spends the rest of the debate arguing about how global warming is bad and how my opponent doesn't care about global warming, and how if we don't do something about global warming soon, the planet will die, ignoring the fact that my objection to it is that planting a tree is not going to have the impact he says it's going to have. It's not going to save the planet, and it's not going to make some sort of any kind of significant difference in the environment. And he hasn't made arguments to suggest why we should do it anyway, even though it's making a small impact. And the impacts that you're claiming about saving the environment are impacts that he predicts will happen if there's a cumulative mass action taking of equivalent nature, that everybody plants a tree, but we're not everybody, so we can't take claim to those massive impacts for our little tiny action here. That's kind of a compare worlds frameworky nonsense that people do all the time. They go, well, yes, you should plant a tree, and then they spend all the time talking about how bad it is to hurt the environment. As though, caring about the problem were more important than what actually happens. And that's simply nonsense. So, okay, burdens. Another way you can weigh around is simply, then they can say you've not met your burden. If you're the one making the claim, I don't have to give a counterclaim. I can just say you've not met your burden. I can negate your reasoning. I can negate your impact. I can negate the link between the impact and the claim. Any number of things. Okay? The point is, there's a lot of different ways I could win without doing anything just because you haven't done what you have to do. That's what it means to weigh a thing on burdens. Now, if we look at compare against model, that's more for a normative approach. Usually, you're going to say, well, we know that violates rights. Violating rights is a way to appeal to a normative model that says, here's a way we can judge different behaviors to determine if it's okay or not. If we imagine a negative rights framework where blah, 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 blah. Now, obviously, no model is entirely perfect. No model can withstand sustained open-ended negation that understands everything about argumentation. So your model is going to break down at a certain point. But the problem is, it's not enough to say that someone's model breaks down. You have to then say why the absence of a model or the alternative model you're talking about is a preferable model. We are obviously always going to evaluate ethics against some sort of standard, whether it's our own emotions, whether it's the other person's experience of harm, whether it's a rights violation, whether it's for the common good or not, or whatever kind of model we're using. We're always going to evaluate any kind of moral claim against some sort of model or the complete absence of a model, which in itself represents a supremacy of skepticism over the challenges of making normative claims about absolute but fluid truths that are then codified into language that are static. You know, it's an implicit problem in there, but it's not. That doesn't mean we collapse to skepticism. So now let's look at truth testing. Truth testing is saying, well, here's the sentence that, and we're going to evaluate the sentence as to see if it is true, even capable of being true. We check the truth value of the sentence, basically, and there's no other way to affirm it. So in a compare worlds kind of a model, you might have a plan that affirms a statement. No, we should use tax dollars for science reasons. Here's the exact science we should use it for. I agree in general maybe we shouldn't, but here's the exact science reason. That's like a plan-based way to affirm a resolution that says the U.S. government should spend money on science stuff, right? But you could instead attack that by saying, yes, the sentence is true. We don't have to say what kind of science stuff it is at all. We just say that, yes, it's true, we should spend money on science stuff, and here are some reasons why. You might argue that it's false, and there's some reasons why. That's truth testing, right? Game theory says debate or arguing is just a game, like Othello, where arguments switch on and off and yada, yada, yada. And so we should not even consider the content of the arguments, but merely the form of the argumentation. If I say that we shouldn't do what you say because it'll cause the moon to fall into the oceans and make everybody turn to cheese, if I have met the requirements of the game, which are to provide some evidence for it, some sort of external advocate that agrees with your position, and I've additionally provided the reasoning or link between the claimed impact and the cause related to the topic, well, then that should count, even if it's obviously nonsense to everybody, because it's an argument, it's not anything else. I tend to live in the land of game theory with argumentation, but I'm also would be considered a blank slate. Blank slate is the judge variant that is sort of implied by game theory, which is I'm just here to listen to the argument. Whoever wins the argument is whoever wins the argument. It doesn't matter to me anything else. You can argue anything goes. And debate judges have paradigms that they have to enter. And so when you go into a debate contest in high school, for example, and it's a serious competition, there are things called judge prefs, where all the judges have entered their paradigms, all the debaters get to read those paradigms, and they can prefer this judge or that judge, or say, I don't like that judge, I don't want him judging me. And then what ends up happening is debaters are paired based on prefs. So the two teams either both have a judge they like or both have a judge they don't like. Anyway, blank slate means I'll hear anything, I don't favor any kind of argument. And then case and theory arguments are arguments that say, you're trying to affirm a resolution that says we should spend money on space stuff. But I'm going to make an argument that saying sentences that include we should spend money on are fundamentally immoral because of whatever. Yada, yada, yada. Okay? Like that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different ways in which you can position and win and argue an argument. And people switch between them in various ways without actually knowing what they're doing, without saying, okay, well, I'm going to kick that argument, which is perfectly acceptable. Say, okay, I just made an argument. I no longer like that argument. It doesn't work. I'm kicking it. It's not on the flow anymore. I give up the point. I no longer make the claim. I retract it. You can retract claims. There's nothing wrong with that. If it doesn't collapse your whole argument, you can still win the argument by retracting claims. So it's pretty important then that that we understand before the argument happens what is being argued and how we're going to be deciding the argument. Now, you don't have to tell your opponent any of this stuff, of course. You shouldn't tell your opponent any of this stuff. You should just sort of figure it out in your head or know that these are things to be considered, depending on what they say. This is all pre-argument stuff. The only other pre-argument stuff I would probably want to mention a bit that I didn't hear is that in the framework part, when you're talking about how you should win, yada, 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 what you're really doing, framework is the part that defines the ground of the debate. Well, what's going to count and what's not going to count? If we're arguing about whether the U.S. should spend money on space exploration, if I say the U.S. should not because space exploration is dangerous and might draw the attention of aliens, that's arguing on a contention level. If I say the U.S. should not because the U.S. government shouldn't spend money on anything, and to the extent they're spending money on anything, it should be something else or whatever, that's arguing on a framework level. Because you're saying not that space exploration is bad or that spending money on it is inherently bad, but rather that spending money on it is bad in the status quo because of some other factor. These are some important things to consider in the pre-argument part. So if you're going to be debating me, what you're going to find is, first of all, probably a lot of the time you made the claim that started the argument. Like, for example, I much prefer to take the neg side. So I'd rather argue McDonald's is not unhealthy than argue that McDonald's is healthy. It's easier. And that whole argument started when somebody said McDonald's is unhealthy or I said McDonald's is not unhealthy, whatever. Regardless, I'm negating the commonly held claim that McDonald's is healthy. I'm not making a claim that McDonald's is not unhealthy because the default is McDonald's is, and then you made the claim, the claim exists that it's unhealthy. I'm negating that. I'm not really arguing my own claim. So that, knowing which side you're on matters a lot too. Who's making the claim, who's F, who's neg, that matters a lot too. All right, thanks for watching. Hopefully this video will go up. If I'm bugged too much by the phone call, I'm going to have to redo it.